This video is made for educational purposes only.
We had several other people in the country, even among the Jews, the Zionists particularly, who were against anything that was to be done if they couldn't have the whole of Palestine and everything handed to them on a silver plate so they wouldn't have to do anything. It couldn't be done. We had to take it in small doses. You can't move 5 or 6 million people out of a country and fill it up with 5 or 6 million more and expect both sets of them to be pleased.
49.
But don't think that decision to recognize Israel was an easy one. I had to make a compromise with the Arabs and divide Palestine. The Jews wanted to chase all the Arabs into the Tigris and Euphrates River, and the Arabs wanted to chase all the Jews into the Red Sea. And what I was trying to do was to find a homeland for the Jews and still be just with the Arabs.
That was President Harry Truman. You know, Nagasaki, Hiroshima, bloodthirsty war criminal, President Harry Truman. Let's sprinkle some historical context in real fast. In spring of 1948, Palestine became embroiled in the American domestic politics. Jewish votes were important to President Truman in the coming election. Key advisors, especially Clark Clifford, pushed him to stand firmly with the UN partition to win those votes. As May 15th approached, pressure on President Truman increased, and he was urged to recognize the new Jewish state that was certain to be proclaimed when partition occurred. Others counseled against recognition, arguing that it would antagonize Arab states and jeopardize American access to oil. President Truman's regard for Secretary of State George C. Marshall was tremendous. The Secretary's opposition to the recognition of the new Jewish state in Palestine troubled President Truman and resulted in the sharpest disagreements the two ever had. Now, for educational purposes only, if America is only about 300-400 years old, what does it mean to capitulate the Israeli occupation of Palestine as being something that is an ancient, old, holy war? Now, for educational purposes only, what does it mean to have separation of church and state and freedom of religion and it being unconstitutional to put taxpayers' dollars towards faith-based initiatives and motives? What does it mean to fund a holy war? Back to the history. In 1948, the Balfour Declaration was scheduled to expire. The Great Britain would no longer rule Palestine. The question over what to do with the tumultuous country was turned over to the United Nations, who would eventually decide to create a new country of Israel, specifically as a promised land for Jewish people. The new country was based on the located across the various holy locations in which many events of the Old Testament occurred, and according to the Bible, was promised to the Jewish people by God. Now, throughout this video, there's been many references to a country called Palestine that was on a map, you see what I'm saying, with a land that was identified as being Palestinian land, you see what I'm saying? And we can acknowledge that from the harrystruman.gov library little website that they say right here, the United Nations would eventually decide to create a new country of Israel. Was it the United Nations in the Bible? Is the United Nations referred to, or the British Parliament referred to, or the American government referred to in the Bible? So to classroom, to the students in the back, what we're saying is that the United States federal government is able to carry out promises from God, right? Is that the same promise of manifest destiny, being able to, slaughter different indigenous peoples from the Atlantic to the Pacific? Is it? What is the motive, some would ask? You feel me? When President Biden says in the 1980s, if there wasn't for, Israel, we would have birthed one, or whatever he said, what does it mean, to acknowledge that President Truman was counseled against the recognition, arguing that, his different people in this council, arguing that this would antagonize Arab states and jeopardize American access to oil? It's obvious the Western world has indoctrinated us to believe that, Western civilization is the gift to God's earth, and that whatever the Western civilization done is done through the divine will of God. See what I'm saying? This new man I'm about to play right here, he new to me. He might be not new to y'all. You see what I'm saying? Listen to what he has to say about the Western world and old Harry S. Truman and old United States of America, man. I recognize that a lot of my privilege as an American comes usually at the expense of somebody else in the globe, and something to think about.
You would think that every European on the continent participated in painting the Sistine Chapel.
Oh, my mom.
Everyone painting in shifts. All of you collectively invented penicillin.
Group
From the
project.
telephone to airplanes, from the cotton gin to the microchip. You all did that as one gigantic team effort. We, the West, abolished slavery. We, the West, gave women the right to vote. We, the West, developed modern technology. You like being called the West then, but just bring up just one of your innumerable atrocities, and then everyone starts looking around.
Not me.
Who, me? Oh, you must have me mistaken for some other person, some other West. Shaggy. It wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
My forefathers didn't own slaves. My forefathers didn't slaughter the Native Americans. My forefathers were just poor, innocent peasants. I have nothing to do with it. Innocent as can be.
Innocent.
You want to take collective credit, but you want to individualize blame.
Whoo, bars.
You'll say that Isaac Newton, for example, is a product of the West. Michelangelo was a product of the West. Mozart was a product of the West. Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Edison, Steve Jobs, they're all products of the West. But somehow your villains are all bastards, illegitimate children that you don't want to claim.
Use the pappy.
No. Hitler was your child. King Leopold was your child. Harry Truman was your child.
Use the
a
pappy.
man who killed more people in a matter of seconds than anyone in the history of the human race.
President
And
Truman.
not to mention every American president after Truman. From the Korean War to Vietnam to the dirty wars in Central and South America to Panama, the first and second wars in Iraq, Somalia, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, and before Truman, I don't think that the United States has had a single decade in its history when it wasn't slaughtering some people somewhere in the world. These are all products of Western civilization too. But anytime these crimes get brought up, you deny collective responsibility.
West Side.
I mean, if I try to list all of your crimes, I can't even remember them all. But if I try to list just the ones that I can remember, your battery will die before I can even properly get started. I saw a video the other day of Amr Suleiman.
Who that is?
And he was asked by some lady, some woman, who asked him, why don't Muslims condemn acts of terror by Muslim criminals? And he was trying to be patient, his style. He was trying to be kind. He was smiling, a very forced smile. And he said, no, Muslims always condemn these things. But why don't you condemn when one of your people murders Muslims in a mosque? And of course he has a point, but also, of course they don't. Of course you don't condemn those things. You've got statues of Winston Churchill, who starved millions of Bengalis and who used poison gas on the Kurds.
Winston Churchill.
You not only
Not my Winston.
don't condemn your terrorists, you not only don't try them for war crimes as they should be tried, you re-elect them into office. Not just elect them, re-elect them. And you deny any